What's up, everybody? Soldier First Class here, and today's mission, we are going to be doing a video that I think I've seen a lot of people do, and I kind of wanted to do one for myself, and that's a first impressions video, and it's gonna sound weird when I tell you how many hours I have in it, 48, and that this would be a first impressions video. However, that 48 hours has been in the first 9 chapters, so we're not even... We're over halfway through, but we just got to the Gungaga region, and I wanted to get my thoughts on this game because I feel like I have quite a few. I won't, go super in-depth with anything because this is going to be spoiler-free. I don't want to give any specifics, but I will say, how I felt about certain parts of the story without giving, the actual details of that part. I have to get this out of the way because I don't want anybody to think that this is going to come from a place of hate, because it's definitely not. I absolutely am loving Final Fantasy VII Rebirth 100%. Well, I'd say probably 95%. But that 5% is kind of just spread out across the game in certain areas and stuff, so it's not like a big moment that I hate or like a big thing that's wrong with it. It's mostly just tiny complaints that I think a lot of people have had over the course of the game so far. So I want to make this video to shed a more positive light on this series and the things that I love about it. So I think the major thing that I love the most about this is the character interactions. The character interactions have been phenomenal, from main party members to side quest characters to random NPCs that you walk around and talk to. Every character feels alive. They've created a living world. The towns are actually towns that you can explore. This is a big step up from the company that once said HD Towns hard. And it shows, that they have improved so much in their game design philosophy in this regard that I feel like it's almost not even the same team. But that being said, though, back to the character interactions, I feel like everybody's introduction so far has been phenomenal. Yuffie, Kate Sith, and all the side characters and stuff like that. And they interact in a way that makes them feel like real people. And I love that about it. They're teasing each other, they're having each other's backs, they're concerned for each other. And the voice acting has really complemented that. So I will give that a big plus in my opinion, that the characters are even better than they were in Remake. One thing I will say, though, about the world map, while I do enjoy it, it feels like sometimes it's a little bit, what's the definition I'm looking for here? Maybe Ubisoft a little bit. It's a little bit of busy work, and that's not terrible. Obviously, the towers and stuff that unlock key parts of the map and stuff like that, which I was kind of hoping they would get rid of the fog on the map, but really that's just from you exploring. There's no fog clearing thing except when you reach an area, so that's a little iffy. But overall, the world map is a lot of fun to explore, and it's honestly really well done, so I can't complain too much. It's we went from Remake, which was pretty much hallways and pretty linear pathways, to this now vast open world where every zone is just massive and they keep getting bigger. And to its credit, they've done really well with it. Sometimes it feels like a little padded out in the regard that there are things in dungeons and stuff that doesn't really need to be there, but I get it, it's there, you're trying to pad runtime and stuff. It's not a huge egregious thing. There hasn't been anything where I've been okay, this is a bit too much yet. I'm sure there will be eventually. Towards the end of these games, they've tended to be a little controversial, whether that's the ending or the actual content involved. I know Hojo's Lab in Remake was a bit rough. Also, while we're on the topic of the world map and stuff like that, I have to say side quests are actually really good. There are a few that are just busy work or just go here, do this, whatever. But some of them have some really good character interactions, and all of them actually improve your relationship with a specific character. So if you're trying to go for a specific date scene, or you just want a specific character to kind of cozy up to, check what character you're doing a side quest for, and if you don't want to boost that character's relationship, you can choose just not to finish the quest. You can save quests for the end of the game and stuff like that, and then boost your characters, or just not do them and wait for either your second playthrough, which is chapter select, or hard mode, or whatever it is you want to do, and then you can complete them there, where the relationship mechanic really doesn't matter anymore. But yeah, I think the side quests are actually really good. From a game design perspective, as I kind of touched on with the moving from hallways to open world, I feel like their game design philosophy here has been phenomenal. Taking things from like The Witcher and maybe Uncharted, maybe not Uncharted, but maybe like Horizon Zero Dawn a little bit. Games like that where they've really improved on the open world and these open zones and stuff. With Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, these are open zones. Like, you have the buggy, you have chocobos, I mean, you have all these different ways to traverse the map, and fast travel is great. I don't feel like fast travel is like a chore. I can pretty much get anywhere I want to go pretty quickly. Sometimes you're cut off by story progress, but that's natural, that just happens. But I really feel like their game design philosophy in this has been fantastic so far. I do want to get into the combat a little bit, because I feel like this combat system is one of the best that I've ever played. In fact, it might be the best action combat system I've ever played. I still hold Final Fantasy X in high regards when it comes to turn-based battle systems, and I even really like the Yakuza system now. But I would say action-based combat, this beats Devil May Cry for me. It beats a lot of action games for me, and I've played a lot of action games over the years. And when this battle system shines is using the assess materia, which is something that I never pretty much used in my remake playthroughs. And it gives you, the ability to see what causes pressure, what causes stagger. Like, I have not always been the biggest fan of stagger mechanics, but I feel like Rebirth, in its current state, has done the best representation of a stagger mechanic, in my opinion. I love that spells are viable. I love that being able to do different things against different enemies, like, it's not all the same. I do feel like a lot of enemies are weak to the same things, and I don't know if that's like, there's just so many different enemies that it was hard to do differences, but I feel like a lot of enemies are weak to fire, and a lot of enemies are weak to blizzard. So those two are going to get you through a lot of the game. I feel like sometimes the materia setups can, in at least this early part of the games, the materia setups can still be kind of iffy until you get late game, when you have more variety and more customization and stuff like that. But overall, I think all of the systems interlock and connect really well. I think that the ATB system is still just as good as it ever was. The shortcuts menu is great. I feel like the vast amount of abilities that you get is still pretty great. I love the synergy system. Absolutely phenomenal. Between the synergy attacks and then the synergy abilities, they've done a really good job with making the party come together. And it shows in the folio system, which is the upgrade system for the game, and it also shows in the relationship mechanics. They've somehow interwoven everything together in a way that feels natural and doesn't feel invasive. Like, I'm able to use, like, let's say you learn a new combo ability with a party member. You use that combo ability with that party member, it raises your relationship with that party member. So it's like, even though you have these side quests where you improve your relationship, and that can affect, like, things later in the game, like the date scene and stuff like that, they actually have implemented that into combat, and I think that's a really good system to have. I personally enjoy it. There are some abilities that I don't really care for because they're, like, oddly specific, or you have to time them just right with projectiles or stuff like that. But I think if you were able to master this combat system, those things wouldn't bother you. I also think, too, that it's really good that this game is easy to learn, tough to master. Like, there are fights where I feel like I'm overwhelmed, and then I do my assess, I kind of scale, or I kind of see what the battle is about, and then I go from there, and then I'm able to, sometimes even on the second try of a fight, I'm able to just demolish it, because I learn what is presented to me, and I'm able to use that to my advantage. And I think with this combat system specifically, it gives you a lot of room to breathe, but also can be kind of overwhelming if you don't use the tools that are given to you. So I think the balance of this system is really good. Sometimes I think that if there was one negative I'd have to say about the combat, I think that it would be that sometimes enemies die quicker than you're really able to see the depth of the combat. But in boss fights, the depth of the combat is just perfect. I mean, yeah, obviously, like a level 1 enemies, or whatever you want to call a level 1 enemy, is not going to put up as much of a fight as, like, a higher level enemy, or even a boss fight, or a summon fight. Like, obviously those things are real, and I'm not going to dock the game for that, like, obviously. But I will say that the depth of the combat sometimes doesn't shine until you're facing those higher level enemies. And even then, sometimes if you know the strategy of beating those enemies, you can just blaze through them with no problem. But this video wouldn't be complete if we didn't talk about the minigames. Now, I absolutely love Queen's Blood. I know that there are a lot of people that don't like card games, but I absolutely love Queen's Blood. I love pretty much all the minigames that I've played so far. I've heard there's a couple later in the game that aren't so great. But so far, everything that I played in the Gold Saucer was fun. Everything that I've played out in the open world is fun. Queen's Blood, for me, is a lot of fun. I absolutely love card games. I'm a huge Triple Triad fan. Absolutely love it in both Final Fantasy VIII and Final Fantasy XIV. But I think that Rebirth has a winner on its hands with Queen's Blood. I think that they could make this a real game, or even release this as like an online multiplayer game, even on mobile phones. And I think this game would do really well. So, I gotta say, the minigames are great, and I think that they're a really welcome addition. The only problem I have with them is that they are forced in the story. Unfortunately, there are times where the pacing gets slowed down to a crawl because you have to complete 2 or 3 Queen's Blood matches or something like that to progress the story. I will say this, though. There are some times where that isn't a big deal. There's a specific spot in the game that I won't really tell you where, but it is totally worth it to play Queen's Blood to get through it, because holy crap is it amazing. Probably one of my favorite scenes in the entire game so far. So while it is a little annoying that it can be dropped down to a snail crawl because you have to play Queen's Blood at times, that scene's totally worth it for me. So that's pretty much all I have to say about the minigames. So, the big elephant in the room, and I know a lot of people that have watched my content over the years have been wondering how I feel about the story so far. When this game sticks to the original plot lines and expands on them and gives us something that we didn't expect, but also isn't, like, out of left field, the game is phenomenal. Junon Parade into the Junon post-aftermath is some of the best scenes I've seen in this video, in this series so far. It might actually be my favorite. Gold Saucer, phenomenally done. Even though it kind of changes, because obviously, like, Yuffie's more involved, and so the characters are more involved. And I think that's another thing about the character writing that I didn't mention, is that they've found a way to make all of the characters that you have at that point in time really involved. I feel like it's when they try to deviate, or when they try to kind of, I refer to it as Advent Childrening. They try to make something look cool for the sake of looking cool, and not necessarily what fits with what's happening. One specific event, which I won't really go into detail about, but I'll just say this. The Midgar-Zalem fight, I absolutely loved that fight. It reminded me a little bit of Malekith from Elden Ring, where they use the environment and stuff like that. Sorry about that. Where they use the environment, and you see the Zalem doing things in combat that wouldn't be possible if it was just on the ground. So, I really like what they did with the fights. It was the post-fight aftermath that I did not really enjoy. There's times where the characters, what they're saying and what I'm seeing on screen, there's a bit of a disconnect. Like, you just got done fighting the Zalem, something happens, I won't say what, but then you get to the mines, and Aerith and Tifa say something about to Cloud, like, oh, well, we don't fight the worst for a living, in reference to, like, him being a mercenary, and then the monsters that are in the mines that they're about to face. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, if you played Remake, you know that at the end of that, you fought the physical embodiment of fate and destroyed it. And you fought Sephiroth and won. So then you fight the Zalem, and then there's like this disconnect where they say, oh, well, we don't fight the worst for a living. Well, maybe not for a living, but you definitely have fought the main boss of the series. You fought at a concept of physical embodiment of fate. You just fought the Zalem, and now you're worried about some monsters in the mine. I get it, they're trying to tease Cloud and stuff, but it felt like there was this disconnect where what I'm seeing on screen and what the characters are saying or doing does not match up. And that's probably just a personal thing, but overall, the entire like scene and interaction was okay. It's just that one little thing for me. And I don't want it to make it seem like I'm hating on it, because I'm not. It's still really good. It's just, there was that disconnect for me. If there was one thing, and I think this is just maybe particularly me that sees this, but I think sometimes they undercut emotional moments in the worst possible times. And I think I don't know if it's because they don't want the game to be like too depressing or what, but there's a specific scene later in the game after you get done with the Gold Saucer the first time, and I'm pretty sure everybody that's played the original game knows exactly what moment I'm talking about. And the fight itself is really good until about halfway through, and then there's some stuff that they add to it that was kind of really unnecessary. And then once that emotional moment has gone through, it's really powerful. Like, John Eric Bentley had me almost in tears. It was so powerful. But then immediately after, you have a boss fight, and that boss fight is more comic relief than it really should have been for that moment specifically, because you just got done damn near ripping your fan base's heart out in this scene, and then all of a sudden there is a joke boss fight right after. And it's like, the boss fight itself was kind of cool, but it downplayed the moment a little bit too much. And I feel like they do this more often than I'd really like, but this one was kind of really egregious to me. So I liked it, but only about halfway through, and then it really kind of went off the rails for me. I will say Chadley's still annoying, but I got over it. It's something you just kind of get over. But I honestly, I have to say, if I were to say how I'm feeling right now by the end of this video, I would have to say that I'm absolutely loving Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I even might end up liking Cait Sith. I know. I know you guys never thought I would say that, but they did a good job with him. I'm just saying. And I don't know if I can ever forgive them for making me kinda maybe like Cait Sith, but we'll see. Anyway, guys, I just wanted to give my first impressions. Overall, the game is phenomenal. I absolutely love it. I didn't think I would like it as much as I do, but I do. I will say this, and this is pending the ending and what happens and how I'm going to feel about it. But so far, this game has been a 9.5 for me. There are a few annoying things, like sometimes the world map's a little bit hard to traverse. There's some hang-ups on certain things that cause like a little jittery or a little jank sometimes. But overall, the game is really well done and really well made. And it's impressive to see the turnaround from remake to this in just 4 years. So I will say this, I'm loving the game, and I think it's awesome so far. But anyway, guys, that's all I got for you. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next mission. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Later, guys.